and welcome to the Friday Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove. I'm joined by a man for whom I am rejecting all kinds of bids. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. What kind of bids, and do I get a percentage of the sale?
I don't have to tell you. If I just reject the bid, I don't even have to tell you it came in.
If I write on a piece of paper, I would like to know the number of the bids in the club.
A transfer request?
Yeah, exactly.
A podcast transfer request? I would reject it.
That's fine. I would never do that anyway, so don't even worry about it.
You're staying.
Unless, like, Alexi Lalas came calling, and then who knows?
Really?
No. I love Alexi, but I'm happy on the East Coast.
Okay, so we have some transfer updates today. There's lots of Premier League transfers happening and not happening, at least two of each. Mm-hmm. We're going to give a quick shout out to FC Cincinnati, and then we've got some listener questions to get to. We're going to be talking about Paulinho. We're going to be talking about East German teams, unexpectedly. We're going to be talking about PEDs. I had to look up what they were. We're going to talk about supporting different teams, what advantage means, and which teams have the best youth academies.
There we are.
All that to come on another thrilling installment of the Total Soccer Show.
Plus, I believe, I could be wrong, 150 scouting reports?
150 scouting reports.
So many that for the first time ever, we're breaking it into two parts on this show. That's how many reports we have to get to.
And if all that wasn't enough, there's going to be a musical interlude written and performed by TSS listener Luke Tourville. Get ready for that.
It's a big show.
Should we start with? Yeah, but it's lots of quick-fire things, right? Okay.
Theoretically.
Shall we start with Felipe Coutinho?
Yeah.
The news, we Googled just before recording, the most recent news is Liverpool have rejected a third bid from Barcelona for Coutinho. This one was £118 million.
Indeed.
It's a lot of pounds.
It is a lot of pounds. It's a lot of money. And really, credit to Liverpool, because at this point I would have expected them to sell, I have to say.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's not much more. I mean, Barcelona can obviously raise that number, but I think they're not going to go anywhere close to...
Because that number's already huge, right?
Yeah, they're not going to go much north of that, I have to believe. So it seems like maybe this will be the final one. I'm sure they'll put in one more final bid before the window goes, but it seems like Liverpool have continued to hold strong.
There's still a third of August to go, but maybe Liverpool are inspired by... Rasenballsport Leipzig with their sort of refusal to sell on Naby Keita.
Maybe you make them sell him to us, and then we'll talk about Coutinho. You finance that
contact
move.
Info.
Yeah.
A move that has gone through, it looks like, is Spurs signing Davinson Sanchez from Ajax for, deep breath, it looks like £42 million. Numbers are big.
Can I tell you my favorite numbers about that? Do you know how many seasons Davinson Sanchez has played at Ajax?
2?
The answer is 1. Do you know how much they paid for him last year at this time?
Less than $42 million.
$4 million.
Wow!
So,
good business, Ajax.
Decent return on investment there. We'll talk more about Ajax later.
Yes, we will, I assume.
Yeah.
We spotted Sanchez playing for Colombia under-23s in that Olympic playoff against the US under-23s. And we said, he looks really good. We're having trouble getting past him, right? Obviously, U23s lost that playoff. That's why the US didn't go to the Olympics. I didn't think he was £42 million to the Premier League good.
No, I didn't either. But maybe that's, number one, the sign that you've got money to spend. Number two, a sign that he's matured and developed further in the Eredivisie, because as we know, defenses there are so strong, it's very difficult to score in the Dutch league.
Well, okay, the other thing is, this move, Sanchez to Spurs, obviously bolsters Spurs. And, it's a signing. I don't think there's been a signing this summer. So Spurs fans probably will be happy they've strengthened.
Yeah.
But there's already Vertonghen and Alderweireld there. And then I think maybe Kevin Wimmer will be on the out. But this is not good news for Cameron Carter-Vickers.
No, it's not, especially because there were times last season when he could have played, and instead Eric Dyer dropped in. So maybe it drops him back in the pecking order, but the key thing to remember there, as you said, is it seems like Wimmer is on the outs, and maybe really is on the outs, as in might get a loan or might get a sale.
But then still, CCV, who we all want to see him playing for Tottenham, right, is at best fourth choice centre-back, but probably fifth if Dyer can also drop into the back.
Yeah.
And I think we're in this weird conundrum phase or dilemma, I guess, where Spurs don't like to loan players out.
It's a dilemma conundrum phase.
A dilemma conundrum. They're in this weird thing where they don't want to loan players out because they like players to develop within the team. Yeah. But at the same time, he doesn't seem ready to play first-team football in the Premier League, especially not based on what we heard about Cameron Carter-Vickers in pre-season.
Yeah, and it's not great to the extent that when we were discussing this earlier via text, I said, let's get him to Wolves. Let's make it happen. And then I think we both had the exact same thought at the same time and kind of wrote the same thing, which is but maybe they don't need him?
No, I mean, Wolves has a back three that they've settled at the start of the season. They conceded 2 goals. And I can't see CCV starting for Wolves, so I would have jumped at this last year, but now I'm thinking it's not a good move for him.
So that's
by the way, this isn't a transfer rumour, that's just a hypothetical in a text message.
But the thing there to remember is that for every club that is stable like Wolverhampton, there are plenty of others that are suddenly like, oh boy, we do not have enough centre backs. Arsenal looking in your direction, for example. So
I don't think they'll be learning into Arsenal.
I doubt it, yeah. But all I mean to say is that there are still opportunities.
Plus they like to play left backs at centre back.
That's true, yeah. I don't know if CCV can do that. He has to shift to left back, then get the loan. I gotcha. So, I mean, there are definitely options out there for the loan, but as you mentioned, Tottenham don't like to send players on loan. Specifically, Mauricio Pochettino does not like that. That said, other players from Tottenham are.
I think he should. I think he should loan him.
But I think
somewhere in the Championship.
But I think this is the problem, like with this sort of situation. It's like, well, he's still there. Like Kevin Wimmer might be on the outs, but CCV is still there. But he might not get any minutes, so he should go on loan. But they don't like sending players on loan. But they have sent players on loan before, so it could be good, but it might be bad. Like
you just summarised that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It's just sort of like, I don't know what to think.
But so I think Pochettino should. There's an argument here for breaking his usual decision-making tree and saying centre-backs need first-team football. Doesn't matter how talented you are, there is no substitute for just being under pressure in a first-team game where points are on the line. And if that can happen in the Championship for CCV, I think it's worth not having him around the club for a season if you get to let him do that. And obviously we're invested in this because we hope he's the future US centre-back. And we've seen how he can perform at least at under 20 and under 23 level.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another man who we've seen perform, we know what he's capable of, is Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Yes, or as Gary Lineker calls him, Gylfi Sinerson.
Yep.
Did you see that tweet?
I did not, but I see the list of numbers that you have next to Daryl did the quick hit notes here. I do know what they are.
Okay. Well, should we tell listeners what they are?
Sure. It's 1, 3, 4, 10, 63, and I believe those are like the number of places he is in the most expensive Icelandic players of all time.
He's the 1st, 3rd, 4th, 10th, and 63rd most expensive Icelandic player of all time. I'm also going to say he's definitely the cumulatively very most expensive Icelandic player of all time. So he's gone from Swansea to Everton.
If I can track this, I'm going to guess maybe he became number 10 when he first went to Swansea, maybe became number 3 when he went from Swansea to Tottenham, became number 4 when he went from Tottenham back to Swansea, and is now number 1 going from Swansea to Everton.
Yes.
That would be my guess.
He's also having a good tour of Britain.
Seeing what's up, seeing what's out
there.
Go
Gylfi, like a good Viking, touring around Britain, causing trouble wherever he goes. I will say, after my comments about Everton early in the season, I think he's going to fit very nicely into that Everton front three.
You do.
And he's kind of a threat to Wayne Rooney.
So you come around then, because initially we weren't so sure like that was what Everton needed.
Yeah, I think just seeing the way they've played, at least the couple games that the one game I've seen in the bits of highlights that I've seen of Europa League stuff, I can see that it's a really, really good fit for him because he'll have quite a lot of freedom to be swinging in those passes and free kicks. He's almost like a Christian Eriksen type character in terms of just serving in clever passes.
To Wayne Rooney?
To Sandro? Maybe to Wayne Rooney? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a long season. You need many players. Rooney's still going to do fine. He got an assist. against Hajduk.
There you go.
He did.
Right. That counts.
I'm on
assist and a goal.
On the board,
He's off and flying.
One player not moving. Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah.
Liverpool still want him. Southampton are basically refusing to sell him to Liverpool because of Liverpool allegedly tapping him up earlier in the season. I read a story earlier today that apparently this deal was almost done, but then because Southampton got so mad about the illegal approach, they're now sort of just digging their heels in and refusing to let it happen.
Yeah, and I heard, I forget what expert it was talking about this, but there's also... Maybe it's not a theory, maybe it's just like a thing that makes sense, that it's not just the tapping up, it's kind of what the tapping up signifies, because people already make
like
the jokes.
Like a lack of respect?
Yeah, like do you remember the joke, or there was the video last year of like the guy, like if each Premier League club were a guy buying a pint at a pub?
It was excellent. Sadly, I can't remember the brand that was being promoted in that video, but it was an excellent ad. Yeah.
And the joke about, like it was, the joke for Southampton was he goes up and says, can I have 4 pints? He pays, £20 or whatever. And then another guy comes up wearing a Liverpool jersey and says, hey, you just pay £20 for those? Yeah. I'll give you 80 for them. It's like, okay. Like, that is kind of the joke now, right? That Southampton are making money off these sales. They don't want to establish
that pipeline any more than it is, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so suddenly, like, there's already a pipeline there, and the joke is, we'll sell them to you for a ton of money and continue to invest it. But then when it becomes sort of Liverpool are breaking the rules and bullying you and kind of forcing you into that relationship,
then it's just taking your lunch money.
Exactly.
Right?
Then suddenly they're bullies, and so I think that's
taking your tall Dutch lunch money.
And that's why I think they're being even more adamant than they might have been otherwise.
Extra story I read on this morning, I believe this is true, is that Van Dijk kind of foolishly was talked into signing a new 6-year deal at the end of last season with no minimum fee release clause. So there's kind of no out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, he will hang out on the bench or hang out with U23.
We're just going to be testing each other's resolve, right? Of how far can Southampton push Liverpool before September the 1st comes around, and how far are Liverpool willing to go?
Or before another Premier League club comes in and offers somewhat close to what Liverpool are offering.
Man City
and that
could
might
probably,
do it.
I think Liverpool have offered 50, and what I read is that Southampton wants 70. So, but Man City could come in and be like, none of these numbers mean anything to us. We'll just throw it at you.
I feel like, or they could, like, they've got enough like young players in their squad that they could probably be like 50 and this guy, a 20-year-old center back. You can have him too.
Sergio Aguero, take you.
I don't think he's 20 or a center back, but I could be wrong.
I'm new to this whole soccer thing. Okay, so one of the things is, it's weird that the Premier League season has started and we still have a couple weeks left of transfer activity. But there was a story this week. I really wanted to talk about this. There's a story this week that the Premier League is going to vote in September. The clubs will vote on whether or not to close the transfer window before the season starts next year, so that almost none of this would still be happening.
Yep.
The reason I said almost is that, as I'm sure you might be about to point out, is if the rest of the world doesn't do this, then Spanish teams can still register players after the season starts. So they would be bidding on Premier League players while Premier League teams can't replace them.
Correct.
And I'm going to assume that makes it a bad idea in your eyes. You're looking at me like this is a bad idea.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a great idea if everybody decided, we'll open the window in June instead of July. We'll close it on August 31st. And then now you close it for on July 31st. 30 days after September, April, June. Yes, 31st of July. Like, so you have like the 2 months there as opposed to opening on July 1st and then it closes.
I'm sure it opens in June.
So you can make the deals. The deals don't become official until July 1st.
Oh, I see. Yeah. All right. So essentially just be a 1 month transfer window.
No, you'd have 2 months. It'd be all of June, all of July. That's what I'm saying. That's that would make more sense to me.
Yes.
But then you run into the problem of, like, if you've got a World Cup, which, then players are focused on.
Oh, there's like 2 weeks after the World Cup when everyone's panicking trying to buy James Rodriguez.
So I understand why they wouldn't do that, but that's the problem then, is so you're not going to have everybody on the same page. So even if England closed it 2 weeks, a month earlier than everybody else, number one, clubs can come in and offer a decent amount of money and turn players' heads, but number two, they can also just mess with clubs. I mean, they can cause instability. There's a story, I forget the reporter on Twitter was saying that, like, there's no coincidence that all of Barcelona's bids are coming in right before Liverpool games. That it's like the day before Liverpool play, Barcelona like, hey, we want your player.
What's a cause argument to maybe drive a wedge and force them towards...
Exactly. Yeah. Or, like, until Coutinho commits to Liverpool, they're not going to play him, and then suddenly it gets, like, relations get worse, and maybe Liverpool either continue to do really, really well, and suddenly maybe they don't need him, or they do really poorly, and then he's a cancer in the locker room.
Yeah.
So I could see, like, it working that way as well, where suddenly you've made this rule that now you can't change, and you just have to, like, hope that nobody comes and messes with you before the official window ends.
So I don't disagree with any of that. I think it disadvantages Premier League teams. But I would make the argument, I think it's Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So the Premier League could just set an example of, this is what we're doing. We're the biggest spenders in the world as a league, collectively. If we start doing business up until the end of July, then... and we just go by that, eventually everybody will follow. So you just take a couple years of pain for eventually setting the standard that everybody else has to follow, right? So maybe...
I think that's the noble interpretation.
Yeah. As we know, the Premier League is a noble organisation.
No, but I'm saying...
He said with one eyebrow hitting the ceiling.
I think that still is like... Or maybe then if I wanted to go meaner but don't mean it in a mean way, I feel like maybe that's like British exceptionalism right there. That, like, if we do this because we're the richest, everybody will do the same. Whereas everybody else might be like, nah, like we're going to do what we do, man. Like, you guys have fun with that.
It would be a transfer window Brexit.
It would. I also want to say, though, that part of this problem... I think is brought on by the English clubs themselves. So we'll talk about, like, England in particular, but, like, the bigger clubs. And what I mean by that is that it used to be, like, think about when Jurgen Klopp first took over Mainz, and, like, one of the biggest stories...
I wasn't aware of it happening at the time, but yeah, I agree that it did happen.
But one of the stories is, like, he did the boot camp. Like, they were, like, locked down in one facility. They all did these, like, really strenuous workouts. They got on the same page. They were ready to compete on day one.
Their boots were shining.
Exactly. Whereas nowadays, like, you have... Like, Manchester United are doing this preseason tour all over the place. They're in the United States, then they're in, like, Scandinavia, then they were playing, I forget where the Super Cup was, like Bulgaria maybe. So, like, they're just all over the place, and that's part of the global aspect of, like, commercialism. And they got to sell ads. But it means that preseason isn't really preseason as much anymore. It sort of is like, yeah, we're on the road. But how often are the stories that the managers hate this? They hate having to go on tour.
Commercial preseason.
Yeah. And so because of that...
they'd rather just like go to probably Wales in the mountains.
And get ready for the season. And that's what I mean is that, so then they come back from these extended tours where they have like had to play young players because they don't want to play their veteran players.
Yeah.
But they're not really ready for the season. And so it becomes sort of like, okay, well now we've got 2 weeks to really get it together. Oh, we need a center back. And I think that's kind of the problem is that they're not really having like strong preseasons. So then when the season starts... But you
think it's even better to sign someone even later in the season?
No, I'm not saying it's better, but I'm saying because they're not getting the preseason that they need, they then have to, like after 2 games, be like, oh, we have no good center backs. We need to go sign 2 center backs. Maybe if they were taking preseason a little bit more seriously, they would know that before the season starts. Then closing the window makes sense. It's possible.
The other version of this is my other argument for it. I think I would honestly like to see it happen. We've finally done like a talk radio thing where we're on 2 opposite sides of an issue. Hooray! It's only taken, 7 years?
You're wrong. Did I do it right? Did I have to do like a whole long thing about how I really respect you and then say but?
And then assassinate my character. The other thing is that I think it would give English teams at least reasoning to reject bids and not a temptation to accept. Because I think of Liverpool right now, if they knew that they could not spend that Coutinho money, then they would be more likely to just hold strong and say no, right? But if that money goes up and up and up, and it gets to like August 22nd, and then they find out about this attacking midfielder who they could get for 30 million, and they might think, okay, let's do it. I mean, we'll make 80, 90 million on the deal, and we've identified this replacement. It's a bit of a gamble. He's not Coutinho, but I think we can do it, and it looks good. I think it might take away the temptation, and you can just hold strong a bit more.
Well, I do think, first of all, I agree with that. The second thing I'll say, though, is I think that is actually the problem for Liverpool right now, is that you look at that Naby Keita saga, and it's been made clear, like, yeah, you guys have tons of money. We're still not going to sell to you. But now it's been made clear they have tons of money to spend. If they sell Coutinho, they have even more money. Now a guy who maybe would have cost 30, that club is going to say, nah, we'll hold out for 60 because we know you've got the money. So it sort of does become like, because they've waited this long, or Barcelona have waited this long with the Neymar situation, now they're looking for a player, that Liverpool then, if Barcelona get their player, are even in a worse situation because now they have, like a week to find a replacement for Felipe Coutinho.
So
that's not going to make them cost double what they should be.
My argument would be then, don't sell it.
I think that's probably where they're going.
And as for the transfer window closing early, we'll find out for sure in September when the Premier League teams vote on it.
And they only need like 13 votes or something like that. It's weird.
13 or 14.
That's odd. I mean, it's an odd number.
It's like I like it because it's a majority, but it's not a slim majority. It's not a super majority. It's not like a 66 votes in the Senate kind of thing. Just thinking about that number for no good reason. Final thing I want to talk about before we get to listener questions is FC Cincinnati. So FC Cincinnati in the US Open Cup semi-final against New York Red Bulls went up 2-0. Looked like they were going to the US Open Cup. I think it's Nippert Stadium was full. It was rocking. And then Bradley Wright-Phillips happened. 2 Bradley Wright-Phillips headers, and they New York Red Bulls won in extra time. New York Red Bulls are going to the US Open Cup. But I just want to say, 1, don't back off of Bradley Wright-Phillips, because that's what happened when the crosses came in. The defending was a little loose. Did you see this?
It's good advice.
They were just a few yards too deep, gave him too much space. But 2, FC Cincinnati, I know they have MLS ambitions. This is kind of what it feels like, right? To support a big team is to have lots and lots of heartbreak. So it's almost like, I know that Cincinnati fans wanted to go to the Cup final, but almost having this semi-final heartbreak is a progression for the team. And it's a progression for fans to have something that really hurts because they really wanted it. Which in a way that you don't get with USL Cup, with all due respect to USL.
And you've also got, when you do your MLS pitch meeting, you've got your 3-minute video of how intense this was, and atmosphere, and I'm sure they'll get a quote from BWP afterwards talking about how the atmosphere was amazing. And maybe in the slideshow there'll be some of those fans who are heartbroken after Bradley Wright-Phillips scored. They'll be saying, look how much they care. Here's this guy really happy, here's this guy really sad. The guy's Corbin Bone goal, Bradley Wright-Phillips goal. And then you find a little kid crying and wearing a Cincinnati jersey, and then you turn to the MLS board and you're like, you wouldn't do that to him, would you?
You're going to make him cry again?
Exactly.
You're going to make him cry again?
Exactly. Give him a franchise.
Final thing, you know who is kind of the villain of this whole thing?
My phone?
Yeah, your phone is the villain of this podcast right now. Not villain's the wrong word, but Tyler Adams cleared a ball off the line in extra time that FC Cincinnati could have equalised and gone to penalty kicks again. Tyler Adams was there to stop it.
Well done to him, and commiserations to FC Cincinnati.
Are you ready for listener questions?
I am.
Okay, so We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to do 3 scouting reports, musical interlude, then 3 more. I invite you to ask the first question, Taylor.
All right. Kate Wu asks, what's your take on Barcelona signing Paulinho from Evergrande? Is it time to stop thinking of the Chinese Super League as a retirement league? I don't think I ever thought of it as a retirement league, but I'll ask you, Daryl.
Yeah, so Chinese Super League is interesting, right? Yep. Because it's not, people aren't going there at like 34, 35 and just doing a couple seasons with a big paycheck. People are going there at, Paulinho's like, 27, I think, when he went there?
Sure.
People are going there in their late 20s just to make crazy money. And then they often move on to other teams.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think it's that's what I mean to say, is that I never saw it as the retirement league because it wasn't a 29, 30, 31 player who was like going there for 3 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time, even going back to like Didier Drogba and Nicolas Anelka, they went there, they played for a while, then they moved back to Europe and went to other clubs, and for Drogba, I think, ended up at Chelsea. So like,
eventually ended up at Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think of it necessarily as a retirement league. I think of it as either a player wants a huge salary and can get that in China, or
money for life,
or clubs have some players that they don't need and recognize that maybe they could sell Oscar back to a Brazilian club or a Spanish club for 10 million, maybe. Or they could sell him to Brazil for 50 or whatever.
So this is how I genuinely think of the Chinese Super League, and not just because of this Paulinho thing. And we'll talk about Paulinho in a second. It's kind of a big story this week, right?
It is.
Is Chinese Super League is an out. It's an easy out. If your club no longer wants you, but there's no other club that's like lining up to buy you, which is often the case, right? Because if you're on the down with a team, then you're not wanted by other teams. Chinese Super League is a place that you can go. Your club gets money, as you said, and the player gets money, and no one has to be too embarrassed because the player's like, I'm going to make bank for 2 seasons, and then I can probably move on again.
And then you could also sort of, maybe if you wanted to like sell it to yourself if you're that player, then it becomes like, I am a marquee player. I am a marquee Brazilian who everybody wants.
It's a good ego boost, right?
They're willing to spend this amount of money on it.
I actually saw a Reddit post by someone who had seen Paulinho play in the Chinese Super League, and they talked about how some players do go to Chinese Super League, and even if they're not retirement age, they just take it easy. They're just cashing checks. They know they've got more skill than the majority of players they play against, so they can stroll through games, still look good enough to make that money. But then some players go to Chinese Super League and they're in it to win it, and they still put maximum effort in, to quote Deadpool. And Paulinho is one of the latter guys. One of the guys who really played hard for 2 years, and people loved watching him play.
All right. Yeah. So it's not a retirement league. It can be a take some time off league.
Or rejuvenate league. Regenerate league.
Yeah. It's a sabbatical league.
Yeah, there you go. Sabbatical league. But a sabbatical where you write a book, not a sabbatical where you sit on the beach.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Paulinho to Barcelona. £40 million, I think. Even though there were no pounds involved, I guess I just read it in the British press.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So Paulinho, like I said, playing hard in China, was being selected for the Brazilian national team, which is a big deal, right?
Sure.
Wait, you don't look convinced.
I'm just waiting for you to make your argument so we can disagree again.
Okay, well, I saw him. You saw him, because I think we were doing the Penny Lane quiz.
Listeners who can't see, I just got an aggressive finger point from Daryl Grove. I'm not sure what to make of that.
It was just you. I was saying,
are we prepared? Is there a camera here? Do I not know this?
Yeah, this is being webcast.
Okay.
So he scored a hat-trick for Brazil against Uruguay in proper World Cup qualifiers. And I remember watching him being, is that the same Paulinho from Spurs?
Yep.
And it was. So looking good for the national team. And I believe he's still in the national team because his coach at Evergrande was Luis Felipe Scolari, who still has some connection to Brazil. So reports were being passed on like, hey, Paulinho's still good.
Yep.
Right? So for me then, that kind of makes sense for Barcelona to sign him.
Sure. I still think it is maybe not the type of player, the marquee name that they were looking for.
Well, no, it's not a Neymar replacement.
No, it's not. But maybe it's supposed to be. Like, I guess that's my
Coutinho is the Neymar replacement. Yeah.
Or Ousmane Dembele. But it's surprising to me that this is the route Barcelona would take, because I feel like there are many other options out there that, number one, aren't going to cost you 40. And yes, it's an inflated market, but I still think that you could get really talented players from La Liga or from this like Segunda division, if you wanted to go that route, for much cheaper, and they could still perform at a capable level. Yeah. It really does feel a little bit...
Or you could play Sergi Samper instead of telling him, hey, sorry, I know you spent your whole life here, but you'll be up for sale.
Or Sergi Roberto? Or Sergi Samper?
Both.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know. They haven't said to Roberto, leave. Yeah. They've told Sergi Samper there's no room for you anymore.
Yeah. So I think in that regard, like, it doesn't make as much sense to me. And then it just doesn't feel like... Not one part of it seems like good business to me. It doesn't feel like bad business either. It's like, oh, great, they've got this really exciting player. Okay, he's good, but he's not great. Okay, they've like got him for $40 million. Again, that's not a lot, but it's not a little either. It doesn't really tick any of the boxes, and it's not a very exciting player. And it doesn't help that he can't juggle.
So I was about to mention
not help.
Everybody will be thinking about that, right?
Yeah.
I did see someone, I can't remember who was it. James Tyler maybe said that. The tough thing is, Michael Cox said, the tough thing is that clip was right at the end of him juggling it for a long time, but they just exerted the 10-second clip of him failing to juggle at his unveiling.
Gareth Bale, same thing.
Yeah. Juggling is not... I think Matt Doyle said, juggling is not how I would judge a player. And if I was signed and it was my big unveiling, I would deliberately pretend I can't juggle. That's what Matt Doyle said, just to mess with everybody.
That would be pretty awesome. All right, maybe that's what he was doing, in which case I'm cool with it again.
But yeah, Paulinho, I think of him as box-to-box, clever with the ball, would put in all kinds of hard work. I think he's a valuable addition to the Barcelona midfield, provided he's not they're thinking he's going to save them this season. I think it's a perfectly fine signing.
Okay. It's a fine signing. I'll agree with that. It's not bad and it's not great. I think, and so to go full circle to Kate's original question, I don't think it is a retirement league, so I don't think we have to stop thinking of it as one.
No.
But I think it will continue to get headlines for the exact reasons it gets headlines. There's a reason why, if you look at who had the best transfer window from a net spend standpoint, Chelsea was far and away the best club because they sold so many players to Chinese teams that they could then had a positive net spend. I think it was so because Chinese clubs are going to keep coming in and buying players. And
plus Man United.
There'll be another, also that. So there will be just another wave of oh wow, China's taking over again, and then it will fade again.
Next question. You ready? Mike Spinelli wants to know, why are former East German teams less successful in the Bundesliga than obviously former West German teams?
Yep.
Unfortunately, Matt Herman's not here to answer this for us, but Taylor did some research. He tells me he has the answer. We'll find out now.
I think I do. Do you have any ideas, or do you just want me to go with it?
I have a guess. You want me to take a guess?
Go ahead.
My guess would be that, first of all, the East German League, the Oberliga, I want to say, was kind of just dismantled when Germany was reunified. And basically those teams weren't well developed economically, so it's just going to take them forever to come back. And also they weren't dropped into the Bundesliga, which obviously, the Bundesliga right now is the West German Bundesliga from the 60s that's just continued up to the present day, right?
No, so 2 clubs went in.
Okay, but 2 out of all of them.
Hansa Rostock, I think it is, and I forget the other one. The other one I think doesn't exist anymore. And then 3 or 4 went into the second Bundesliga 2.
Right. So basically I'm saying it wasn't
down.
a fair merger in terms of 50% from here, 50% from there. And then also the clubs in the East didn't have good economic infrastructure, so they're not set up to succeed.
Well, here's the thing that people kind of forget is that, you don't really forget, but you don't think about the ramifications of it, is that East Germany, Soviet satellite state, it's a communist state, which means it's communism. So you don't have to deal with capitalism. You don't have to deal with sponsorships. You don't have to deal with paying salaries.
So this ties into there's no economic infrastructure for those teams, right? Yeah.
So it's basically you look at it, and essentially, first off, though, that people have probably this idea that it's it's West Germany, capitalism, they can go out and win World Cups and play really good soccer. East Germany, it's all kind of grim and Stalinistic, and so therefore they probably didn't care as much about sport. Quite the opposite. That basically because they
just in a different way, right?
Sort of, yeah. Because they're essentially isolated, because they're in an East German but really Soviet state, they really didn't care much about sports, except that it was the one avenue they had to kind of break that diplomatic and political isolation.
Yeah.
So they put a lot of effort into developing the East German national team because they wanted to show people, look, this communist team can go out there and compete.
Yeah.
So that was all well and good. They had very good players. The issue was that then when the Berlin Wall came down, there was just nothing in place. And so suddenly, if you've never had to worry about paying taxes, finding sponsors, doing any of the corporate stuff you have to do, and suddenly you have to do that, they didn't know how to do it.
I'm hearing that I'm right.
Yeah, basically.
Yes,
so,
I'm the best guesser.
When the wall comes down, essentially, you'd get no more subsidies from the government. It's a market-based economy, so now you have to worry about all the things I mentioned.
Now I feel like you had a lot more detail than I have.
I'm going to. None of the teams in the East had any idea how to run a free market club. So West German clubs had been getting sponsors, had been knowing how to successfully sell players and bring in players. So
and again, just to put this in for viewers listeners, I promise we're not streaming this, who don't have this historical perspective of this. This is roughly 1991, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so It's an amazing story, and apparently a true story, that Bayer Leverkusen were the first club to realize, wait a minute, all of these guys have never made much money at all. We can get all of the best East German players. So there is a story that is apparently very true that East Germany went for a World Cup qualifier against Austria, and I forget who it was at the time who was the number one, everybody was the most coveted player, and he got subbed out. He sits on the bench, and he's sitting next to a guy
Stefan Effenberg?
No, I can't remember who it was. Is he East Germany?
I don't know.
But I thought it's like Tony Cruz was the only big name East German.
okay.
Anyway, so he sits down.
Zama?
Yes, Matthias Sammer.
Yes.
That's what it is. He sits down on the bench and he looks next to him. There's a guy who he doesn't recognize. It's a scout for Bayer Leverkusen who snuck onto the team's bench so he could talk to the East German players about signing for Bayer Leverkusen. So suddenly,
rascals, Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah. So, but it's basically
capitalist rascals.
all of these capitalists can now say, hey, we'll buy you a car. You've always wanted a Mercedes. We can give you a Mercedes. That's literally what happened. It's like, oh, we can get you a BMW. We can get you this. And so they were like, yeah, sure, I'll come play for you. So suddenly there's this mass exodus of really talented players from east to west.
Yeah.
What East German clubs did was think, well, now we have the money to buy these really, really exciting players. So they kind of did the NASL route where they bought players who were like past their prime for way too much money, thinking that's how you win. You bring in that one big guy and he'll win the whole league. So then they went downhill. On top of that,
They did bad capitalism.
yes.
Yeah.
And then the final thing that I thought was really interesting was to go back to sponsorships for a second. Again, East Germany communist, there are no companies. There's no private companies, so you can't get sponsors. And there's still a pariah. If you're East German, you're essentially a pariah. So
I remember hearing this from German people. That,
Yeah.
it was almost like they were like very wary of people from the east
Yeah.
because they had nothing, and it
Yeah.
tilts the German economy in a weird way. And it's taken a long time for things to sort of
So West
be
German
reunified.
companies aren't going to sponsor East German clubs. It's just not going to be a thing. So you can only get local, small companies, and that's basically still the case today. You have one East German team in the Bundesliga, and that team is RB Leipzig, which no one counts as an East German team.
An Austrian company then has to sponsor an East German team.
Yep.
But yeah, actually, that's weirdly the massive outlier to this is that Leipzig are now they're probably the second best team in Germany based on last season's Bundesliga.
Yeah. But
because of the most capitalism ever in the Bundesliga.
And that's why people, and it's a club that like was renamed and no one really cared about, and suddenly is this huge club in the Bundesliga. And so people don't really, like, every article you'll read about East German soccer mentions that, but it's either...
Leipzig definitely East Germany, right? We're not off
100%.
Okay.
They're the one East German club in the Bundesliga, but again, like weren't even an East German club because they didn't exist at the time. They were whatever they were.
But it's an East German city.
Yes.
Yeah.
But really, you'll get either like, oh, it's a sign that things are changing, that East German clubs can have financial investment, or more often, it's they're the outlier. They don't even count. We still need to focus on development. Because the reality, and this is the thing that totally blew my mind, and then I will stop talking, only 17%...
You just see me look at the clock.
Yes. Only 17% of the German population lives in what was East Germany.
Right.
Like, it's crazy disparity. So you still have... most of the like economic return, if you're going to get a job, if you're young, it's going to be in the West.
Yep.
It's changed a little bit now. From what I understand, Berlin is getting a larger and larger, like, younger population.
Yeah.
But there's still not many economic opportunities, so then players are always going to go to West German clubs if they want to develop into their true potential.
I can say just from my short personal experience, I went to Dresden, 2 years ago? It's an incredible city and crazy cheap.
Yep.
Like, really, really cheap, because I think the economy is still developing, and it kind of looks like a Western city,
Yeah.
but the economy is like very forgiving, especially if you're sort of middle-ish class like I am. I'm a working / middle class.
Yeah. Final note, because some people might be wondering, Hertha Berlin, we're in West Berlin, so they are always in the West German
Union
League.
Berlin were in the East, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the amazing story I heard is that, but like Hertha before the split, they were supported. Okay, but they weren't like the biggest supported club, but they had supporters in East and West Berlin, and so the stadium, when the wall went up, I guess was so close to the wall that East German fans who liked Hertha could still hear the crowd noise, so they would like stand by the wall and listen, and if the crowd cheered, then they knew it was a goal, and then they could cheer as well.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's like a lovely image, but also a sad image.
Walls are dumb, is what I have to
Walls
say.
are dumb. Official TSS policy,
Yes.
walls are dumb.
Unless you're trying to block a free kick. Then they're fine.
All right, next question.
Yeah. Why don't I ask this one, since I just talked for a while?
Yeah.
Does that work for you?
You want to talk more? Yeah, go for it.
PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, courtesy of Jake Stolzenbach.
Okay.
PEDs are brought up in a lot of American sports, but never soccer. Why is that? Are people not using PEDs?
So I think the phrasing's weird, right? Like, we don't hear about PEDs in European soccer. I think the phrase is doping, which I'm going to assume is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Performance-enhancing drugs, like any banned substance that you take to improve your performance.
I'll add this one wrinkle. The last thing I ever really remember about from like a performance-enhancing drug standpoint was, I think there was a scandal in the Netherlands with like Nandrolone or something like that.
And that was Davids involved?
I think it was, it was around then, but it was like, mid-90s. So it's been a while since there's been like a true scandal.
There were questions over Russia, the team in the World Cup. There was the Rio Ferdinand thing where he missed a drugs test, and he essentially just got banned because they said, well, this looks like
Yeah.
you're real guilty. So maybe the first thing to say is that there is testing, right? There's, I think, random testing of Premier League players. They'll just show up at the training facility and say, hey, we want to test a couple players. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Champions League, European Championships, World Cup, a couple players after each game are randomly selected to go and give a urine sample, and they test for drugs. So there is testing.
There is. I think as well, like major international competitions like the Gold Cup. I don't know about international friendlies, but I know that like media have wanted to talk to Clint Dempsey after a U.S. game, and he's the one who selected randomly for the drug testing.
He's off somewhere holding a cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfecting his aim.
Yeah. So there are screens. I would say this, though. Like, Rio Ferdinand, as far as I remember, was, if you want to go with like the rumors and the allegations, it was more about recreational drug use. That's what he was probably going to test positive for.
Okay.
And so that's maybe why he forgot to answer his phone or whatever.
And actually, no, he turned his phone off and went shopping.
There it is. Yeah.
No,
but his excuse was, I was shopping, so I turned my phone off. That's what I'm saying. It's like, oh, sorry, I didn't know any better. It's like, you know what you're doing. Get out of here.
So we don't know anything about River now, one way or the other. But
Yeah.
Basically, I wish he could have played for England in the time he was banned. Let's put it that way. The thing about recreational drugs, that seems almost more prevalent with especially Premier League players. Like I remember Adrian Mutu was tested positive for cocaine while playing for a Premier League team. I know it's happened to other players. And I think that gets to a key thing here is the reason we don't talk about performance-enhancing drugs as much in soccer is that I don't think it is as prevalent as in, let's say, as a really easy example, sprinting. And I think that's because sprinting, like, obviously there's a mental aspect to it, right? Yeah. It's about focus and training and all that, but it's essentially running in a straight line as fast as you can, right? It really, whereas soccer is so dynamic and so much of it is about sort of like how you process the game, how you think. It's about your technique. There is not a drug that can improve Luka Modric's first touch. There is not a drug that can improve Paul Pogba's vision of passing. You know what I mean? These things are just things that they've got and things that they've developed, and there's no way to artificially. If there was, then we'd be living in the future and it would be amazing.
See, I kind of disagree with you there, and this is where I would say...
Are you saying Paul Pogba should drop acid and he'd like see all new passing angles?
Well, see, acid is not a performance-enhancing drug. What I would wonder, because I really don't know this, and this is something that, like, and I don't know this, I thought about researching it, and then I was like, no, I'm not reading what goes into it, but I know that there are certain things that in American sports, Major League Baseball, for example, they test for things, so does the NBA, that, like, are legal in Europe. So, like, I know there was, like, the story about Kobe Bryant when he was recovering from injury, going to Germany, getting a bunch of different treatments that aren't, I guess, allowed in the United States.
Blood doping?
I think that's what it was. I could be wrong. And so the one question I would have then is, like, does that extend to drug screens? Because to your point about Paul Pogba, like Adderall can help you focus. And it is a banned substance, as far as I know, in, like, the NFL. You can't take Adderall because it leads to, like...
But Pogba's not studying for a test when he plays for Man United.
No, but it can make you sharper. It can certainly focus you and can lock you in your focus. And so there is an element there that, like, is that a banned substance in England?
I don't know. If you were to ask me, should it be, with my no scientific or medical knowledge, I would say no, because it's a thing that people have to take for particular conditions, right? So it would almost be unfair if you were a soccer player with attention deficit disorder, then it would be very unfair if you were not allowed to take Adderall.
Yeah,
right.
I think Adderall, like, without saying too much, it's also a thing that is, like, relatively easy for people to get when you say, like, I'm having trouble focusing and I'm sleepy.
Yeah, well, like, maybe in the United States.
But that's my point. And so, like, I do just wonder if there are different rules and, like, in terms of what FIFA or the internet, like, whoever does the testing, which is the
WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency.
Yes, and so I do wonder how much...
Maybe WADO.
Either way.
There's definitely a WAD in there.
I just wonder if there are some, like, discrepancies there that lead to stuff that maybe would be caught in other sports not being caught or not even mattering.
But we are talking about, for me at least, this question is talking about, Jake is asking about the performance-enhancing things of, like, how baseball players got gigantic for a few years, right? And I'm thinking of just basically if you try and apply that to soccer, it doesn't work, because being, like, having big mass and big power isn't necessarily good for soccer, right? Just your free kicks don't get bigger because you have bigger thighs. You know what I mean? Roberto Carlos accepted, maybe. It's mostly about technique and thought process and things like that. Fair?
Yeah, no, it is. The thing that you've just made me realize is also, again, I would be interested to hear about, like, the random drug testing that happens, because say you are injured, like, so, okay, for example, say Rio Ferdinand had pulled his hamstring, and then the testing people came. I doubt they're testing an injured player, right? Because he's technically like not with the first team. He's probably off getting like recovering.
I don't know the answer.
And that would be the time when you're probably taking stuff to get you back to full fitness.
Oh, you're talking about like recovery drugs?
Yeah, so then I wonder if like is horse placenta code for human growth hormone? like I'm just wondering now, is like are there ways to get around it basically because maybe you know when you're going to
probably are. Maybe that's why there's not so many high profile cases of certain banned substances not being reported.
Yep.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this off air a little bit, I think. The Milan lab of the late 90s, early 2000s was kind of mid-2000s maybe, was kind of famous for players' recovery times and players playing a long time. Nothing's ever proven, but a lot of people suggested that maybe they were up to no good in the Milan lab.
Indeed.
Doing mad experiments.
Yeah, so I think it probably is like prevalent to some extent, but I don't think in the way that it is in a lot of other sports because I don't think it has the benefit for soccer that it has for other sports.
And it's because you can succeed without it. That's the thing. You can succeed without it. Whereas, like, say, cycling, if you're up against a bunch of other guys who are all taking it and they've all got that extra, you know what I mean, extra endurance, then you've really got no chance. But Xavi or Paul Pogba could be kind of out of shape and still pick out a pass. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, we've gone long, but I was going to add that I think they have.
It's going to be a long show. We just have to accept that.
Yeah, I think they have done a thing now with the World Cup where they have a whole like human passport. I forget what it's called. It's something like their health passport or something, where they know everything about you if you're competing. And I think that is specifically designed to deal with blood doping.
That's
because
interesting.
That way they can test. Like, wait a minute, you had a blood cell count here, and now it's way higher.
You have too many red blood cells.
That doesn't make sense. We're going to check the dog crates, and if that doesn't make any sense, it's because that's where Lance Armstrong allegedly hid the blood that he used for blood doping.
I did not know that. All right, should we take a break from questions for the first part of our scouting reports? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But we can do them in rapid fire. You want to get us started, Tyler?
Sure. Up first, Jim Broshar scouting Jonathan Klinsmann, the 20-year-old American goalkeeper for Hertha Berlin. Klinsmann injured his ankle ligaments in training and will be out several weeks.
And thanks to Jim, we knew that when we talked to Matt Herman. We looked knowledgeable, but we didn't credit Jim, but thank you, Jim. Gareth Brown is scouting Ryan Kent, 20-year-old Englishman for Liverpool. Gareth says Kent has signed a new 5-year contract with Liverpool after a successful loan spell at Barnsley last season and a fantastic pre-season with the aforementioned Liverpool. It looks like he'll be going out on loan again this season, but with Coutinho looking likely to leave, who knows? I would not like to be Ryan Kent tasked with replacing Felipe Coutinho in that Liverpool first team.
Nor I. Michael Curry scouting Haji Wright, 19-year-old American attacker for SV Sandhausen on loan from FC Schalke.
Oh, okay.
Haji's been sent out on loan to Bundesliga 2 team SV Sandhausen. We got that one. Quotes from the Schalke camp indicate that they think he needs to gain more in-game experience, but that he will return next summer to continue his development at Schalke. So basically they said...
Maybe join Weston McKennie in the first team?
Yeah, I think they said he's very good, he's not yet ready, we'll send him out somewhere, he'll get minutes, he'll come back, maybe he'll be ready.
Pay attention, Mauricio Pochettino. Do it with CCV. Matthew Shea is scouting Alessio Romagnoli, the 22-year-old Italian defender for Milan, highly rated. Alessio will be out with a meniscus injury until at least the international break on September 5th when he returns. He is expected to slot right into the starting lineup alongside Leonardo Bonucci.
Andy Hollums scouting Julian Green. Prepare to be disappointed. 22-year-old American attacker for Stuttgart. Julian Green was in the 18 but did not play. Stuttgart beat VfL Bochum on penalties in the DFB Pokal on Sunday. Julian will have to fight for consistent playing time this season, which he didn't even get last year in Bundesliga 2. One lengthy team preview from the site Wavel didn't even mention Green's name, which is not promising.
Come on! Ryan Marzak is scouting Pione Sisto, the 22-year-old Danish winger for Celta Vigo. Sisto scored a brace against Roma in the final pre-season friendly. The first was an absolute rocket, while the second was a smooth finish after some nice teamwork. Go on, Pione.
Ryan Marzak is also scouting Joshua Noma, the 20-year-old English midfielder on loan at Aston Villa from Tottenham.
Important, right? Because he's the exception of Pochettino saying, you're close to the first team, I'm going to go and send you out on loan. Because you're not Wanyama or Dyer just yet.
And we'll see how it goes, because Josh came on as a sub in Villa's opener against Hull. He then started in Villa's 3-0 loss to Cardiff and looked average on the left side of midfield. Hopefully this is just introductory jitters and he will settle down and start playing well.
There's also, he's not a left midfielder. He is a central midfielder. He's the English Luka Modric. Brian Watley is scouting Sergio Diaz, the 19-year-old Paraguayan attacker for Club Deportivo Lugo, on loan from Real Madrid. Brian says Diaz has gone out on a 1-year loan to Club Deportivo Lugo. Thanks for giving me a second chance to pronounce it. In the second tier. Lugo finished 9th in the Segunda last year, and their top scorer, Joselu, has left the club. This hopefully means Sergio will be a regular starter for them. Sergio Diaz.
Sean Dickey scouting Weston McKennie, 18-year-old American midfielder for FC Schalke. Weston started Schalke's first match in the DFB Pokal against BFC Dynamo.
Okay.
He played 55 minutes and put in a good shift considering his experience level. With the game tied 0-0, he was subbed off for Germany's Leon Goretzka to ignite Schalke's attack. Weston has been consistently in Tedesco's 18 this preseason and seems to be the real deal.
So I saw a quote from the coach asked about why he subbed McKennie out, and I think he said he played well, he pressed well, he passed well. It was pre-planned to sub him out of the game because we're trying to manage his workload this season. So I'm taking that as maybe an indication that we don't need to panic if McKennie gets pulled out of games. It's because he's a teenager and because they're trying to be careful with him and not exhaust him in his first season of first-team football.
Get him on that plane.
I see one of us has more patience than the other.
Yes.
Beth Jolly and Alex Barone are scouting Kylian Mbappe. You know who Mbappe is.
I wrote that.
Did they? Oh, you read that? Still good. Yeah. On Sunday, August 13th, Kylian did not appear in Monaco's 4-1 victory over Dijon. Kylian will meet with Monaco this week to determine his future and will not play for them again until a decision is made. This is getting nasty. Not nasty, but it's getting worrisome.
Yep.
Mbappe has reportedly agreed to terms with PSG, and the speculation regarding his transfer fee is insane. The Sunday Times says that the tentative deal features an initial transfer of £173 million, eventually pushing the total fee in excess of €220 million that PSG spent to acquire Neymar. So he'd be the new most expensive player in the world.
Pretty much.
Oy.
I do love Dijon mustard, though.
I saw Julian Draxler was told at PSG,
Yep.
sorry, no time for you.
Yeah, which maybe speaks to Kylian Mbappe arriving sooner rather than later. I believe he wasn't even on the bench for their game today.
That's a good pickup for someone. Wasn't Arsenal after him a while back?
Who's that?
Arsenal went after Draxler.
Oh, yes. I thought we were talking about Mbappe. He's probably a pretty good pickup. Yeah, Draxler is definitely a good pickup. And we were impressed by him every time we've seen him.
Yeah.
So there you go. Final report of this segment comes from Taylor Mukaria scouting Jeremy Abobise. I believe we've got that pronunciation down now. 20-year-old American attacker for the Portland Timbers. Abobise has finally started getting playing time, scoring his first MLS goal on July 23rd. Since then, he's usually gotten about 20 minutes per game, including last Saturday's 4-1 loss to Toronto, in which he notched the team's only assist.
So thank you to Jim, to Gareth, to Michael, Matthew, Andy, Ryan, Brian, Sean, Beth and Alex, and to Taylor for today's Scouting Report.
Names are funny.
If you'd like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. You'll be supporting the show. If you subscribe at $10 a month or higher, we are guaranteeing to answer one question per month when we do listener questions, which I'm hoping you will have noticed we've done a lot more of those lately. If you want to ask us a question, send it to or go to totalsoccershow.com/questions, and there is a form to put it in. It goes in a nice spreadsheet so we can keep it all in one place. All right, 3 more questions to go and more scouting reports to go. But first, because this is a long show, let's give people a break from our voices and listen to someone with a better voice.
Sounds good to me.
So Luke Tourville, TSS listener, has recorded an album. I'm not sure if it's not edited and finished and published yet, but he's recorded an album that's soccer themed. And there's one track that he sent to us very kindly called My 3 Favourite Words, and it turns out it's all about the Total Soccer Show.
It is.
And it almost mirrors an episode of the Total Soccer Show. It's short, right? It's under 2 minutes. So we're going to play that for you now.
Hello and welcome, 3 words that I enjoy, 'cause I know what follows after it's a masterful employ. Witty banter back and forth and jokes and puns abundant, and more pop culture references than any other pundit. But amidst the friendly chatter of these super bestest buds, they talk a little football, yes, the soccer's what they love. Insightful match analysis from columns A and B. These boys know what they're on about, and I seldom disagree. Fictional starting lines in the scouting report. These are but just a few things that have really got me hooked. I tried to make the song as accurate as I could, 'cause honesty lies in the lines, but humor is always good. Well, I guess there is only one thing that's left for me to say, and that's thank you for taking the time to listen to this song today.
So thank you again to Luke for that. The track was My Three Favorite Words, I believe.
Which turned out to be Hello and Welcome.
Yeah, exactly. And there you go. Turned out to be is the key point there. I sent that to my wife to listen to, and she listened and was like, oh, this is nice. And then at the very end was like, wait, this is about you? And then she went back and listened again. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So thank you to Luke for that.
So many kind words in there. Thank you very much. And it was really catchy. I really liked it.
It was. I also will add at this point, Luke, I still plan to send you the thing I have to send you. And I'm just going to put this in the show so that he knows it's real. And thus I really have to do it and can't forget.
I'm just going to say I already sent mine.
I know. That's because you're responsible in English and proper.
That's on my resume.
That's good.
So a reminder, the song was called My Three Favorite Words, and there will be a whole album, I'm assuming sometime this year, that Luke has produced. We'll let you know when it's released.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, Taylor, shall we move on to more listener questions?
We shall.
In this bumper edition of the Total Soccer Show.
Yeah.
Next question is from Dale Pop. Dale Pop wants to know, or says, I heard Daryl say in a show the other day that he doesn't have a Premier League team because he's a Wolves fan. I was really sad reading this question at this sentence. In your opinion, in your opinion, what's the acceptable gap between divisions to support more than one team? Got an answer?
I think I do. And I think my answer is if you're English, then it can be you could have a club in the Championship and then have a club in the Premier League. We have a friend, Pav, who had just that. He's a Man United fan and a Huddersfield fan.
Yeah.
He has now made it clear to me that if Huddersfield are playing United, he is firmly rooting for Huddersfield.
Is that right?
So I think that's the way it works, right? It's like you can support a top-tier team but also support your local team.
So it's not so much about a division gap as about a size of club gap?
I think it's about like locality gap.
Man United and Huddersfield are number 1 and number 2 right now. If Pogba hadn't scored that fourth goal,
yeah,
they'd have been joint top. I texted you when the third goal happened, right?
But well, it's just more so like I think if you're English, you might be from an area that has like one team that's never going to get out of League 2 or League 1, but then that might be near enough, I don't know British geography, but it might be near enough to Manchester or Arsenal or Liverpool or whomever that like then they're also going to be your bigger team.
I have 2 of those teams.
Yeah.
So I have obviously Wolves, and then 10, 15 miles away in my hometown, Hull's hometown.
Yeah.
They've never been higher than like the 6th tier of English football. Unless there's some major takeover, they're not going to be in the Premier League anytime soon. And then also kind of got a soft spot for Stourbridge Town, which is just up the road. They're rivals, and yet I still kind of support both of them as a local pride kind of thing, knowing they'll never clash with Wolves. Yeah.
So I say all that to say, though, from there it gets a little bit murkier. Because I would say that like you can be a fan of multiple clubs, and I would say you can enjoy watching clubs in the same division. But if you're going to be like a diehard fan, I think it's pretty much it. You got one club. That's my feeling on the topic.
Well, you probably... Okay, so I want to preface this by... Did you listen to the interview with Jason Davis?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so in there, we randomly... Because Jason had just decided to start supporting Spurs, right?
Yeah.
We talked about like how certain people try to lay down laws about what you can and can't do as a soccer fan. And just talking to Jason about it, we essentially came up with the idea that there's no laws. You can just basically do whatever you want. Yep. And anyone who's trying to tell you it has to be, you have to do this or you're not a proper fan, it's probably coming from a place of insecurity to try and sort of force you to do things.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
So then am I insecure? I'm confused.
No, because you're not laying down hard and fast laws. Like you can't support 2 Premier League teams or you can't
I'm kind of saying that.
Are you?
A little bit.
Well, but look at Pav. I have no problem with what Pav's doing.
Because that's my point, is that he's English. I think the difference to me would be that if you... All right, this is the obvious extreme, but if you met somebody who was like, I love Liverpool and I love Manchester United, they're my 2 favorite teams, it's like, no, that does not work.
See, that's why I think that's odd, is because those teams are obviously competing in the same space. Yeah. So you can't really support both of those because at some point they're going to come up against each other. Like even with Huddersfield, I would argue that even though they're a Premier League team and Man United are a Premier League team, they have very different goals, right? Yeah. Man United aim to maybe win the league, challenge for the Champions League spots. Huddersfield aim to finish, 17th or better.
Yeah.
It's a very different stratification of what their goals are.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And even then, like Huddersfield last season, because you could then say, like, yeah, but they're still a championship club. There's a decent chance they get promoted to the Premier League. But even then, it was
unexpected.
It was very unexpected that they made it. So I think it's acceptable there. But I go back to the England thing of being English. It makes it a little bit more justified because the reality is, you're never going to pick a Premier League team. You, Daryl.
I'm hoping to just pick Wolves and hope they get there.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
I think, and we have a bet on it, and I think they will. But what I mean is that it's not like you're going to be like, well, Wolves are down, so I love Chelsea now.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not really the way it works. And so I think that like that's part of like maybe the fundamental, not like it's the confusing point in Dale's question is that really it doesn't really matter like how close they are in divisions. You have the clubs that you kind of grew up with. You're not suddenly going to pick another one.
And it's because it's not like the NFL, where if the team drops out of the NFL, then they're just no longer a franchise anymore. You know what I mean? It's not as if Wolves became an arena football team. They're a team that has a chance to maybe one day go back to the Premier League, right? And in the meantime, I'll just watch the Premier League and enjoy the amazing things that happen there.
There you go. So I think then my reaction to, like, you can't have two is just more so, you know, the Mitchell and Webb sketch of, he walks in and he's like, we beat you so bad this weekend. I just can't stand that. I can't stand the person who, like, just decided to start loving Man City. I'm not really, that's not anybody in particular, but for me, like, if someone's like, oh, we're so good, we're so great, it's like, well, you hated soccer like a month ago. You don't get to do that now. And suddenly now you're also a Chelsea fan? No, that's not allowed.
Isn't the joke in that Mitchell and Webb sketch as well, like, he'd watched The Last Crusade or Raiders of the Lost Ark and decided that he identified with Indiana Jones. And do you remember when we beat the Nazis?
I saw it and I enjoyed it, and therefore it was me.
Oh, we're going to have to link to that sketch in the show notes now.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we kind of answered Dale's question with it's complicated, but you'll know it when you feel it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, look, so if someone says, I support Liverpool and Arsenal, then you've got to look at that person like,
I don't know about that.
Okay, next question.
Scott, Eli, or Ellie, I apologize, either way.
We should know by now.
I'm going to say Eli. Scott, Eli. I often hear a commentator saying advantage played. What does that mean, and how do we know it's happened?
Ooh, okay, so advantage played is if you have been fouled, but the referee doesn't give a free kick because you've come out of the foul somehow with the ball and with an advantage. So the referee doesn't want to stop play. He'd rather just let you keep going and maybe, if it's a yellow card, address the foul afterwards. But in the moment, it's better to let you keep going. So it's basically not calling a free kick when he knows it was a free kick because it's better off to let you keep dribbling at the goalkeeper.
And so,
or wherever you are.
And I think the thing that can be maybe confusing at times is that there will be moments when the referee will play advantage, and you can tell because usually they do like the point with two hands. To say like palms up, point to say like continue.
Arms
essentially.
out, right?
Yeah. It's always arms out. Oh, that was sweet, pointing at each other again.
Which means essentially continue.
Yeah, continue, right? But then sometimes, like say I've gotten past you and you fouled me, but I've somehow stayed on my feet. But then,
first of all, if I foul you, you're going down.
True. But so then like I stay on my feet, but then the next touch because you fouled me is like a bit heavy and it goes out of bounds. The referee that can then say, never mind, we're taking that back for a free kick. The difference would be what he can't do is like let me get past you, play advantage, then I take a touch, take another touch, and then I shoot and the ball goes wide. And he's like, oh, you didn't score, so now you get a free kick.
If you get past, so you get past the guy that fouled you. If you take on the second guy and he just cleanly tackles you, you've been cleanly tackled. Right? You've lost the advantage. And it's actually a lot of responsibility that the referee has to handle because he sort of has to calculate, is this player going to do well from here, or should I have just given him a free kick and his team can cross the ball in or do a Burnley if they want to do a fake free kick?
And I think maybe for like the reason why I'm sticking with the like the referee can call it back, I think that really is more of an in-game thing, that really only impacts the game when you're playing. That like I think like I don't see players lose their minds when suddenly the referee says, never mind, no advantage, we're giving a free kick. That's usually a thing that happens in indoor with our teams or outdoor where it's like, what? No, you said play on and now you're giving him the ball back after he gets tackled, but you will have those moments in games.
That's true. Okay, any good examples of referees playing advantage?
I mean, my favorite one, the one that I linked to on Twitter, was Mike Dean. It was like controversial at the time.
Tottenham?
It's basically Tottenham score and he like runs like he like fist pumps and celebrates, and so everybody's like, oh my gosh, Mike Dean, he's rooting for Tottenham.
Spurs fan.
This is ridiculous. But if you go back and watch,
Mike Dean and Jason Davis do meet up in the mornings to watch Premier League.
If you go back and watch, that's good. He lets play continue. He lets play go on.
He played advantage.
Basically, player's been fouled. He plays advantage. The player goes on to score. So he's actually celebrating getting the playing of advantage correct.
Decision,
that he let it play, and then they got a goal. So the correct decision led to a goal. That's why he's celebrating.
All right. So I'm hoping we've explained advantage well there. And it's a good question from Scott because it's one of those things that you just hear from an announcer or you hear someone next to you in the pub say, and you're just like, what? It's tennis? What is going on? So advantage is when you are fouled, but the referee thinks it's better for you to just keep going. Okay. Final question? Comes from John
weird.
Adams, not that one. As a Spurs fan, John asks, I get the joyous and sometimes incredibly frustrating experience of following a club that takes pride in their youth system and actually bringing young talent into the first team. This got me thinking, what other clubs around the world are known for their youth systems producing productive top-flight talent at the moment? Which clubs have a history of bringing youth through but maybe have fallen away from that policy lately? So who's doing it right now and who's done it in the past but has maybe gone off the tracks a little bit?
Sure. Where do you want to start?
We
doing it now
we both did a bit
off?
of research. Let's go with doing it now. Like, which teams are the best at doing it now? I feel like we've both gone and done some Googling to check our gut feelings. Is that about right?
Yeah, basically I went gut feeling, jotted those down, and then checked to see if my confirmation bias would work. And it mostly did. Because the number one that I came up with was Southampton, that they keep unearthing players. And there was I think it was Football Weekly maybe, or Totally Football, whatever they are
new
now.
show, yeah, Totally Football show.
But they made...
Which actually I've listened to. It's good.
Copycats. But they made a joke about Southampton have brought in this new centre back and they're really excited about him and he'll be good to sell on for £40 million in a year.
Was it Stevens?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think of Southampton as one where they kind of keep bringing players in from their academies and then augmenting that with some good buys from abroad and finding success that way.
I've got the list. Recent players to come through the Southampton Academy, play in the first team and then either stay or move on, but mostly move on. Theo Walcott, Gareth Bale, Luke Shaw,
also him.
Adam Lallana, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain,
Indeed.
Callum Chambers.
Affirmative.
James Ward-Prowse is still there.
I've run out of positive adjectives. Yep.
Matt Targett and I think it's Jack Stevens, I may have that wrong, are currently in the first team.
See.
And even in the past, in the 90s,
Bueno.
Alan Shearer, Matt Letizia, Southampton Academy
not bad.
players, right? Okay, so any more?
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Sorry, and after we do this, I think we should get into why these teams seem to be doing this.
I mean, I would say Ajax.
Yes, that was my next one.
There was a Vice article about the CIES Football Observatory doing a study of who was actually developing young players. Ajax were number 2 in terms of players that were still playing at a professional level that were developed in their academy.
Was Southampton number 1?
No.
Okay.
FK Partizan were number 1.
Oh, interesting.
In Serbia, I believe. Belgrade.
Yeah.
Is that you? Yeah, okay. They had 78 players playing professionally at the time of that study. Now, where they were playing...
I mean, we're dealing with top end here, right? With Southampton and Ajax.
Yeah, so Ajax, I'd say. And then from a South American standpoint, Santos have a history of bringing through very exciting players, ranging from Pele to Neymar. So, and lots of other ones in between.
So I had Ajax because of Matthias de Ligt is still there. Donny van der Beek is playing this season. And I think the captain's name is Joel Voltman. Daley Blint was recently there. Davy Klaassen was recently there. Both those guys came through the system. And then going back, Wesley Sneijder. And then back even farther, that 1995 team that won the Champions League with mostly Ajax talent. So Ajax they were the team that was famous for having an academy-style system where players would get through to the first team. Right?
Yeah. And I think the kind of common denominators with some of the clubs that we just mentioned is that, Ajax, they're not really... The days of them really competing in the Champions League and winning a Champions League are, at least right now, gone.
They're 1995.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Ajax, they know what they are. They're going to consistently compete in the Eredivisie, win a decent amount of Eredivisie titles. But that's pretty much it. So they can kind of continue to focus on youth development, bringing young players through, succeeding that way. I think the same is true for Southampton. That at least right now they've established themselves as a Premier League side, but they're probably not going to be top 4. They're just not going to spend that amount of money because they can't.
Because they'll keep losing guys like Virgil van Dijk. Even the good players they bring in will then be sold on, or their homegrown players will eventually be sold on.
But what they can do is what they've done, which is bring in those players, develop them, sell them for lots of money, and then even when those players continue to be sold, get money off of the sell-on fees, and then invest that. So if you look at their training facility and everything they've done to increase the structure of the club as a whole, that's how you really then make that next step. Because now you've got better training fields, state-of-the-art facilities. Now players come in and they think, this club, they're not some backwards, just promoted, don't really have nice facilities. They're world-class. I'll play here. You bring in that player, maybe for less money than you would have had to spend otherwise, then you sell them on, or you get a little bit better at a time and you slowly build your way up.
You also can invest that money in your academy, hire more coaches, then be even more productive. I've got one more team that I want to talk about before we move on to maybe teams that don't do it, that I think proves a theory I have about why certain teams are better at this, and that is Athletic Club de Bilbao.
I have them in my notes as well.
You do? Okay, so they have a lot of players Laporte, the famous defender, famous-ish, I guess, Total Soccer Show famous, Aymeric Laporte, the centre-back. They have Williams, Munian, and Iturraspe, I believe, right now. Llorente, I believe, came through there. A lot of players came through.
In that same study, I believe they had 63% of their starters on a consistent basis were developed within the club.
And I think
homegrown players,
the thing that this gets to is Bilbao have this policy of only playing Basque players and yet still competing in La Liga in the first division. It's almost like a self-imposed constraint that then forces you to look inwards. Right? They do go and sign other Basque players. Like I think they got some players from Zaragoza. Maybe that's what happened to Herrera. But basically, if you set a policy like that, you almost have to produce your own, and you just have to get good at it, or you're going to fall out of the top division and down.
Yeah.
And maybe you could say the same for Southampton. They can't go spending all over the place. They have to keep bringing people through. And maybe the same for Ajax, because I know it maybe doesn't work in the Champions League, but I think there's a certain philosophy at Ajax that they believe is why they were successful, whether it was an accident to begin with or not. And maybe it's a Cruyff thing that he sort of was all into. I don't know who laid those foundations, but because it's worked for them, they think this is the way we do it, so therefore we have to do it. So therefore you're more likely to play a 17-year-old like Delete at centre-back because you establish that culture where that thing is not weird, whereas it's weird elsewhere.
Absolutely. And I think you're always going to have pressure like from your fans. If you're Ajax, I would say you are the biggest club in the Netherlands. No disrespect to PSV or Feyenoord or whomever else. But
who probably also have respectable youth programs. Yeah.
But I think their fans, if Ajax fall off and finish 7th, the fans are going to be mad. But they're also going to appreciate that it's like, but we've got these guys coming through the academy. Yes, we'll go out and sign a player here or a player there, but it's always going to be about the academy, and I think there is a little bit of that understanding. So there's always going to be pressure to succeed, but there's also always going to be pressure to make sure that you've got academy players in there.
And so this brings me to the teams that maybe used to do it but are not doing it.
Which is probably where we're going to hear from some people, would be my guess.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people would have been shocked that we have not yet mentioned Barcelona and La Masia, but I would put them on that list of maybe...
La Masia.
Excuse me. That I would put them on that list of clubs that used to do an incredibly good job of developing young players. And certainly, I think if you look at players who are playing professionally who at one time have played for a Barcelona academy, there are lots of them out there.
Yep.
But not necessarily for Barcelona.
I'm going to say the same for Manchester United.
Absolutely.
Here's my argument for both of these
I was
teams.
going to mention that right away. Yeah.
So they both have great youth academies, but they both had just one spell where they brought in like almost half a team from their youth academy, right? So Manchester United is famously the class of 92, which ended up being like Beckham and Scholes and Butt and the Nevilles. And so you had this idea that they would just keep bringing players through all the time.
I'm fighting the urge so hard to be a homer here. So
okay.
Just keep talking.
Well,
keep talking.
Just hear me out. Hear me out. But then like afterwards you do get some other youth team players coming through, but it's never going to hit that same height because there's the pressure on you to succeed, right? There's always going to be more pressure than say, you can't say to the fans, Jesse Lingard's the future. We're not going to sign anyone else. Like Mkhitaryan, don't need him, right? So even though they have a couple of youth players in there right now, and United, I think for a team of that size are doing quite well with it, it's never going to be the golden period that it was where you definitely say this youth movement works. Right? Same at Barcelona. You had Iniesta, Xavi, Busquets, Piqué. I think before that, Puyol, maybe. Like these players all, Guardiola, these players all came through in a batch. And now you've hit this like global sort of money, crazy soccer period, and Barcelona won't be able to keep up just with their youth team players. At least that's what they think right now. Hence Sergi Samper being told he can leave.
True, but I think the other element in there, and this is where once again, like this is mostly gut and a little bit of research. So if I'm wrong, feel free to email me.
Gut search?
Yes, Daryl at TotalSoccerShow.com. But it's also with United, with Barca, with lots of other clubs. Just these are the two that we're talking about. It's also become they still are developing players. They still have young guys coming through. Timothy Falsu-Mensah, for example, United player, loaned to Crystal Palace. Already looking pretty good. We'll probably
from the
come
area,
back.
Definitely not from the Netherlands.
But that's the point, right? It's a lot of players brought in when they're 16-ish.
Yes.
Paul Pogba was the same, brought in from Le Havre. Like Tahith Chong is the other one who supposedly is going to come through. Axel Tuanzebe as well. Like these are all guys. Tuanzebe might be English, actually. I forget.
Yes, he is.
But there's definitely an emphasis on bringing in players from all the way around England, everywhere in England, but also everywhere else as well. And that can get you into trouble, which is what happened with Barcelona. So then you go down that route as well, where you have players who suddenly can't even be in the academy anymore, can't even be with the team because they got them in there essentially illegally.
But the other thing is, if you're bringing in sort of what I would call high-profile youngsters, like say Pogba when United got him from Le Havre, he then is the star of the youth teams, and it means some like Manchester kid is not the star of the youth teams. And like Pogba also, because he arrives, he already, as soon as he moves to Man United as a teenager, he's got expectation on him. He's got pressure on him. People are watching him. So then he almost like to fulfill his career, then he has to leave. So then it's almost like you invest all the time in him. You deny opportunities to like less famous youth team players who maybe don't get to see first team action maybe. But then Pogba moves on because he's got more to gain by moving on.
Yeah.
And then you've sort of hurt the progression of some of the local lads.
Yeah, and,
you know what I'm saying?
and to your point about Pogba, like, I know that people would say, like, well, he didn't have to move on. It was a mistake for Man United that they let him. But the reality is, no, he absolutely
Look
did.
how his career's gone. He did the exact right thing.
Ferguson brought Paul Scholes out of retirement rather than play Paul Pogba and like kind of rely on him. And I think it's to your point that there's pressure and they can't afford to do that. You can't say, yeah, we know Paul Scholes just retired, but we've got this young French guy that no one's heard of, but we promise he's good. And they may well have known his potential, but I think they probably thought he's 2 years away. We need an impact now. And that was enough for him to be like, fine, I'm never going to get chances. I'll go to Juventus.
Although I'd even say that it's more that so I think Pogba had a profile at that time, especially among Man United fans. But you don't want to throw him into the first team, him be terrible, and then just destroy the poor kid's confidence.
Yeah, I mean he got minutes here and there, but I don't think he was. I mean, he certainly wasn't the Paul Pogba that we know and love today.
Yeah.
But I do think that you're absolutely right. I also think you're absolutely right that there are players who've been in that United academy since they were 6. And then they're 16, they're getting closer, they've been playing midfield their whole life. And then Paul Pogba comes in and they're like, well, bye. You're not playing anymore.
Do you have Sunderland's phone number?
Yeah. And that's why I mean so many players. Like if you look at like who did the Richmond Kickers play last week? Orlando City. That there were like 3 different players in there who were like in the Man City academy. I was like, what? Like he played for Man City? He played for Man City? He played for Stoke? What's going on here? And the reality is, these clubs just have such huge academies. And I don't think people realize that like tons of kids come through these academies.
And maybe one makes the first team.
Because you can't really risk to not have them come through, but then you can kick them out, and that
you
kid
also
can
can't
then
risk
say,
to play them.
Yeah, exactly. So it just becomes a weird system.
Oh, okay. So thank you to everybody who asked us a question today. We really enjoyed doing listener questions. We'll keep doing it in a smaller form on the show, right? We can't do whole shows of questions, or can we? Maybe we can. We'll see what's going on over the next few weeks. We have scouting reports.
Oh, we do.
To close out the show.
I forgot we had more.
Were you ready to say goodbye?
I sure was.
Okay. Scouting Reports Part 2 starts with one of those Orlando City B kids. He wasn't the Man City Academy, though, was he?
He was not, I don't think.
Would you like to start us off?
Sure. Amy Sparks, scouting Pierre Da Silva, the 19-year-old midfielder for Orlando City B. With Pierre's impressive play with Orlando OCB this year, speculation is rising that Da Silva may start getting minutes with the senior team before the end of the season. Orlando City don't have a proven left midfielder, and it seems Pierre could slot in there pretty easily.
So we watched him tear the Richmond Kickers apart.
Yes, we did.
Yes,
he did.
Weekend. Yes, he did. Right. So he played left wing. Did he get the assist on Orlando's goal?
I can't remember.
I think he did. I think he got it down the corner, beat a guy, and cut it.
He
back.
absolutely did.
Yes. He looked very good.
With an assist to Richmond's mediocre defending. Yes, he got the assist.
It wasn't great, was
it?
Yeah. So I've also seen, when we researched Orlando for that game, I saw some of Pierre Da Silva over the last 2-3 weeks. He looks like a guy who's ready to play up a level.
Yeah, but I think it's also they've been playing like Kaká there sometimes, and that hasn't worked well. They played a holding midfielder there sometimes.
Good news is Kaká's going to be suspended.
Yeah.
Have you seen the footage?
No, I have not yet.
So
the VAR footage?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of an argument breaks out between... Sorry, I'm a bit off topic, but this is really interesting. Bit of an argument breaks out.
It's okay, it's a short show anyway, so we got to fill it out somehow.
Orlando and New York Red Bulls.
Yeah.
Kaká comes up behind Aurelien Collin, puts his hands on his face, right? In a grabs his face kind of way.
Yeah.
Colin turns around all angry. Then he sees it's Kaká, who used to be his teammate, and laughs out loud, and they both giggle. So essentially, Kaká broke the tension by playing a joke with his old teammate. But then the referee calls for video review for the whole melee, or maybe specifically for that incident, and they notice that Kaká's put his hands
on his face.
on Aurelien Collin's face,
goodness.
gets sent off.
That's silly.
It is, but it's good news for Pierre Da Silva. Yeah, bad use of VAR.
Yeah. Speaking of that, did you hear the VAR rules for Germany for the season? That's going to be
I knew
seamless,
they'd
is what they've
be
said?
Weirdly different, right? When they do something odd with
I
it.
guess basically they're not going to stop play. It will only be for egregious mistakes,
Just
involving,
a check on the referee,
penalties
basically.
and goals
Safety
and
net for
maybe
the
red
ref.
cards. I think that's it. But it will. I think they're saying play will never stop. He will get on the fly consultation from the VARs, and then he will have the discretion whether or not to make the decision.
Oh no, that's going to be like being a teacher when you've got the teacher grading people coming in.
I would say it's going to be like that, except that the grading people are in your ear, hey, you should teach that better.
Teach better.
Yeah. Teach gooder.
Charlie McHugh, someone should have taught you good.
Yeah.
Charlie McHugh is scouting Trent Alexander-Arnold, the 18-year-old Englishman for Liverpool. Speaking of youth team players getting a chance. Charlie says, Nathaniel Klein's pre-season injury has opened the door for Alexander-Arnold. He started against Watford in the Premier League. Yeah, we saw him. And maybe was at fault for their second goal. Let's not talk about it. But looked even better in the Champions League qualifier against Hoffenheim. He scored a lovely free kick in that game and was in competition for man of the match honours. We saw this free kick before we started recording. It was a lovely free kick. Up and over the wall so quickly, it landed in the bottom corner.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm responding because good work on you, Daryl Grove, because I meant to flip these reports around, because up next is Guy Jedwab scouting Serge Gnabry, the 22-year-old German winger on loan at Hoffenheim from Bayern Munich, who talks about that game that you just mentioned.
We'll get to that in a second, though, because we watched the highlights, and the downside is Trent Alexander-Arnold slightly at fault for Hoffenheim's goal.
Indeed. Yeah, he basically thinks the player's offside, puts his hand in the air, and tries
to track him down. He tries to chase him down and tackle him while looking at the linesman with his hand in the air appealing for offside.
Yeah, I'm going to say he doesn't even try it. I'm going to say he just keeps his hand in the air and runs vaguely in the direction of the player while his hand is still in the air.
Yeah, so it finishes 2-1 Liverpool. Still a decent win, but it could have been better. So I want to say a 0 for the day for Trent Alexander-Arnold, but most people will remember the free kick, so he's probably good for his reputation.
Well, Guy says in a game that is going to be remembered for Trent Alexander-Arnold's fantastic free kick, Gnabry put in an excellent 70-minute performance for Hoffenheim, starting as one of the attacking three in a 3-4-3, rotating from left to right. He found plenty of space, caused Liverpool's defence plenty of problems. He was the one that forced the penalty, the worst penalty ever.
So, yeah,
Gnabry, it was a correctly given penalty. It was the terrible take.
So good work from Gnabry, wins the penalty kick by getting fouled in the box, but then Hoffenheim miss it.
Yeah, and I think Guy said maybe that means Gnabry now gets to take penalties, ? But the 2-1 loss at home makes it unlikely that he'll be doing much in the Champions League this season.
Does he get to go to the Europa League? I think if you lose at this stage, you go to the Europa League. I'm pretty confident.
Sure, why not?
You don't trust me, do you?
I have no idea. But sure, that sounds good.
Joel Tolbert is scouting Chris Goslin, the 17-year-old American for Atlanta United. Goslin's the guy who's not Andrew Carlton, but is still good. Goslin was a late call-up to the MLS homegrown game and delivered the assist in the final minute of stoppage time to earn the draw. More worryingly, Joel says, Goslin and Andrew Carlton were left out of John Hackworth's prep camp for the U17 World Cup. Mm-hmm. So was Chris Durkin, though. So I'm thinking that this is maybe the guys who are on it's like a bubble camp, right?
I think so. Yeah, because I know Joe was very concerned about this, and I think that is exactly it. That basically he knows those guys are going, but let me see what these guys on the bubble, maybe there's 5 spots remaining.
If Andrew Carlton's not on that U17 roster, I think I might not even watch it in protest.
Yes, things have gone wrong. Olaf Danelius up next, scouting Erdal Rakip, the 21-year-old Swedish attacker from Malmo. He had a good day. Rakip had a great night in Malmo's 6-0 win against Kalmar.
You're wrong. You said good day.
He assisted on the second goal. Well, in our time zone, it was a good day. He assisted on a second goal with a beautiful back heel flick. He was then taken down for a penalty, which resulted in the third goal, and he capped things up with a fourth goal of his own. Right. Receiving a pass with his back to goal just inside the penalty area, he was able to turn and launch a well-placed shot into the far bottom corner. Katie
Sutton is scouting Katie Cousins, the 21-year-old American midfielder from Richmond United, the academy, and the University of Tennessee. Cousins redshirted last year while she played for the US at the U20 World Cup. She was named Top Draw Soccer's pre-season Best 11 third team. She was named to the third team. And in his SEC preview, the great Will Parchman, we've heard of him, called Cousins perhaps the finest possession midfielder in the country. He certainly has a good turn of phrase, that Will Parchman.
I can't remember if it was Katie or somebody else who mentioned Will Parchman and added RIP, which made me sad.
Actually, it's worth pointing out, Will Parchman is not resting in peace. Yeah. Will Parchman is still very much alive, and you can follow him on Twitter to read. He'll still have soccer takes on Twitter, I'm sure. But a lot of the tweets when he announced that he was leaving sports writing were as if he'd passed on to the next phase.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are worried, Will Parchman still alive. Wade Boggs also still very much alive.
Top Draw Soccer Show also still very much alive.
Also that too.
And we'll have Will Parchman this next Wednesday.
See, there we go. Yeah. All things are good. Kyle McElhinney, scouting Renato Sanchez, 20-year-old as of today. Happy birthday, Renato. Midfielder for Bayern Munich. Still, despite being named to ESPN's 21 under 21 list, that would make more sense. Sanchez has not yet found a new club. Bayern reportedly rejected a €50 million offer from AC Milan, indicating that he might stay in Germany, but there's still the possibility that he goes out on loan.
Oh, wow, that's weird. I would have expected Sanchez to be somewhere by now.
Yeah, saga. Transfer saga.
Happy birthday. We got you some disappointing news. You have to stay here and not play?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Dave Pinkus is scouting Bartosz Kapustka. You mentioned him in the Bundesliga. Kapuchka, that's how you do it. Sorry. Bartosz Kapuchka, scouted by Dave Pinkers. Didn't you mention him in the
5-5
Bundesliga predictions?
Keep reading.
20-year-old Polish winger at Freiburg, on loan from Leicester City. It's always sunny in Freiburg because, after all... Is this Dave telling us this? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll go from the start because I started laughing. It's always sunny in Freiburg because, after all, Freiburg is the sunniest city in Germany. In Freiburg's early matches this year, Bartosz made one appearance, coming on in the 82nd minute in the DFB in a 2-1 victory over Germania Halberstadt. Dave adds that he will be sure to let us know when Bartosz Kapuchka hits Taylor's prediction of 5 goals and 5 assists. Oh, you've got scouts tracking your predictions. You're a genius.
It's the way to do this. I love it. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to Russell as well, Russell Varner, scouting Hugo Ariano, the 19-year-old American defender for the LA Galaxy. Galaxy president Chris Klein confirmed on Thursday that center back and team captain Jelle Van Dam will leave the club to return home to Belgium for personal reasons.
Are the personal reasons that Ziggy Schmidt doesn't rate him?
No, I think the personal reasons are family related.
They
left
okay.
with that.
I take that back. I feel bad making that joke.
I think he's also already agreed to terms with Antwerp, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
LA indicated that they will try to keep Van Dam for the next 2 games before letting him go prior to the window closing. The move, for purposes of this report, means that Ariano could get more playing time this season, or more likely will be in the squad consistently, but probably on the bench.
Okay. We have 4 more scouting reports. Turnover. Rowdy Fraser is scouting Jake Morris, the 18-year-old American for Seattle Sounders. Okay, Rowdy says, Joevin Jones agreed to a contract with Darmstadt in Bundesliga 2. He won't leave the Sounders until the end of the season, but this will leave a spot open at left back. Nuhu, a speedy Cameroonian, is considered a sure replacement, but there is a chance that a spot opens up for Jake on the first team. Even if he doesn't make the first team, Seattle Sounders FC 2 might find him a spot, as this will be his final year in the development academy.
That was the one. I think that was the one because he said, according to Will Parchman. And that might have been argued.
Also, if Jake Morris is called up to the senior team, what's the name on his jersey going to say? Will him and Jordan both have Morris, or will it be J.A. Morris on Jake's jersey? I don't know the answer to this. Because normally if 2 players have the same second name, they'll just have the initial, right? It'll be like J. dot on one. So if they both have the same first initial...
my guess would be either he will go by Jake, and it would be Jake on the back of the jersey.
Like a Brazilian?
Or more likely it would be Jake Morris, because I think that's brief enough that you could probably put them all on there.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or could Jordan Morris just go J-Mo Smooth?
That'd be awesome.
He could do his full nickname.
This did lead me to do some Googling, because it didn't really occur to me until that point. Like, all of the boxes were there that it was like, young player, Seattle Sounders, last name is Morris.
Jordan Morris.
And then for a second I was like, does he have a brother? Is this Jordan Morris's brother? So then I had to Google to figure out that no,
so you can confirm it's not.
They're not related.
I thought the same thing reading this. Okay, 4 more scam reports.
At least I'm pretty sure they're not related. Jake Morris is from Florida, and as far as I understand, Jordan Morris has never lived in Florida and grew up in Seattle.
So okay. Sorry, I've already started. Yep. Mark Ryan scouting Gio Simeone, the 22-year-old Argentinian forward for Fiorentina, son of Diego Simeone. Gio has moved from Genoa to Fiorentina for €15 million and put pen to paper on a 5-year deal. Big news for Gio Simeone. And thanks to Mark Ryan. I mean, Mark Ryan's been tracking this move as it's been rumoured and then happening, but he's been tweeting it to us. We didn't see until too late. It wasn't going into the report box where we get them all from. So, Mark, do us a favour. From now on, could you please send it to totalsoccershow.com/report? Please?
Please. Up next, Zach Betcher scouting Timothy Weah, the 17-year-old American forward for PSG. Weah has been named to the 22-man roster for the Vaclav Jezek Youth Tournament in Prague. You should pay attention to how I just pronounced that, Daryl. The U.S. U17s begin play against Hungary on August 22nd. Okay.
So this is the one that Carlton was not named to and Goslin was not named to, maybe.
I guess so, yeah.
We should look into this. Todd Itu is scouting Takafusa Kubo, the 16-year-old Japanese midfielder for FC Tokyo. Todd says Kubo was unsurprisingly named to the Japan U17 squad for the Vaclav Jezek International Youth Tournament, which runs through August 28th. Seamless. Training camp then begins for the U17 national team in preparation for the World Cup, which starts on September 27th. Basically, Kubo will be a full-time U17 national teamer until after the World Cup. Kubo played at the U20 World Cup as well. Keep an eye on him at the U17s.
He good. Final report comes from Jay Glenn scouting Ruben Neves, 20-year-old Portuguese midfielder for Wolverhampton.
Yes.
It's long because we've got some questions in here.
I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it.
Ruben Neves Neves had a pretty decent game in Wolverhampton's 3-2 victory over Hull City. He scored and put in a man-of-the-match performance. Wolves have now beaten 2 of their promotion rivals, Middlesbrough and Hull, in the first
Cardiff.
3 league matches. Your next Cardiff, apparently. At this rate, Neves will be in the EPL next season along with Wolves, to Daryl's delight.
True.
Which brings me to a question, says Jay. As Mr. Grove has been known on occasion to check on Wolverhampton's progress, is a dedicated scout necessary for Neves at this point? I'm happy to continue in the role, but it is highly likely Daryl will know more than I can report if and when Neves leaves Wolves. Garnering a healthy transfer profit, it will almost certainly be to a well-known EPL player.
I thought we were going to get to talk about Neves' goal, but okay. I mean, I would prefer to have a Wolves player in the scouting network because I kind of love that.
Yeah,
right?
I think it also gives us a natural way to talk about Wolverhampton at a time when we probably won't talk about Wolverhampton that often.
True. So, Jay, if you are okay with it, we would love for you to keep scouting Ruben Neves, if not least because, for example, I might miss a Wolves game, so it's good to have someone else watching them.
Yep.
And they need all the eyes they can get.
Yep.
They need all the clicks they can get on various stories. So if you're okay with it, I would love for him to keep being scouted. It's one of my favourite things that's happening in the scouting network is that there's a famous-ish Wolves player in there.
Does that mean you've come around on this whole George Mendes influence at Wolverhampton?
I mean, it's hard not to by the way this season has started. I've watched Wolves play and been really, really impressed. So, yes.
There we go.
It didn't take much, right?
Welcome to the dark side, Daryl.
It just took 2 league wins and a cup win, and I'm all in.
That's all it took.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, then.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
You sold out cheaply, my friend.
Be the change you want to see in the world, unless Wolves win 2 in a row.
There you go.
So, thank you to Amy, to Charlie, to Guy, Joel, Olaf, Katie, Kyle, Dave, Russell, Rowdy, Mark, Zach, Todd, and Jay for all the scouting reports today. Once again, if you would like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, the URL is Taylor.
TotalSoccerShow.com/join.
Thank you. And if you'd like to ask us a question, the URL is
TotalSoccerShow.com/questions. Any more? Please don't give me any more.
If you want to know.
End this show.
Okay, all I will say finally is thank you again to Luke Tourville for letting us use the song in the middle of the show. We hope people liked it. I guess we'll just say, Taylor, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy. I'm sorry we won't see each other for a very long time.
Oh, we will. So we've got, Kickers commentary against Toronto FC 2 tomorrow night. Then Sunday, we'll be back in studio, and we're going to do... people seemed to like it last week. I enjoyed doing it. Thumbs up, thumbs down on the Premier League and probably anything else that's happening in Europe, any big games like Barcelona. I think La Liga kicks off. Bundesliga, MLS. We'll have a good look at MLS. So we'll try and do thumbs up, thumbs down for the whole weekend.
We'll try to do all of that with a caveat that it has to be done by 9.
Does it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Game of Thrones, baby.
Oh! You got no DVR?
I don't. It's appointment TV at this point.
Okay. I'll tell you what we could do is if we do run long, rather than shortchanging our listeners, we should just hit pause, watch it on the big screen here in studio, then go back to recording.
I'm not sure I can do that. I think if anything, we'll probably have to DVR it and then watch it after the fact.
Okay.
Although that in and of itself is a tension causer. I won't say which episode we watched and what was happening, but I'll say that both of us were like, oh no, okay, oh no, okay, that's all right. Like it was more tense than I think I get for U.S. national team World Cup games. Is all I'm saying.
I'm scared of scorpions now.
That's fair.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back on Sunday night.